That brands and the companies and stakeholders who wear those brands as a mask profited from the Second World War isn't really news. War is a ravenous death machine that thrives on a diet of industry and flesh, and it pays handsomely. While some companies later admitted to shady, green-driven profiteering among other shady activities in World War II, it's likely many denied it or avoided that sort of attention altogether, taking refuge not in the shadow so much as behind big, colourful signs. Though, what makes a company shady? For instance, some companies may have profited from World War II without intending to exploit it. Some may have capitalized on it just to stay afloat in an uncertain, terrifying time, and some may have profited simply because their business was vital to their country's war effort. There are many other cases in which companies may have profited from the war without intending to be shady, as there must have been many cases in which companies exploited the war under the guise of innocence. While there is room for ambiguity here, some companies were discernibly shady. In this video, we're going to look at some of the more obvious cases in which brands and the companies and stakeholders who wore those brands succumbed to their greed and profited from or were otherwise shady in World War II. Nestle. Yes, the guys who make Milo, Kit Kats, and just about every other product keeping dentists in business, supplied the German military with sweet, sweet chocolate, earning themselves hundreds of millions of dollars and arming the Nazis with something to lure Jewish children in with, ultimately for transportation to concentration camps. Maggi, a subsidiary of Nestle, also employed forced laborers from concentration camps in Switzerland, and Nestle later paid out 25 million Swiss francs to Holocaust survivors and Jewish organizations in compensation for the Jews who suffered in Maggi's facilities. We've all heard of how Hugo Boss, the company, manufactured uniforms for the Nazis and how Hugo Boss, the founder, had one stiff Sieg Heil. The company tailored not only uniforms for the army but also for the Hitler Youth and the Waffen-SS. Now, as the founder was German and the company's HQ was in Germany, I don't consider this sort of profiteering all that shady, and all evil aside, I must admit the Germans always did look pretty sharp. Anyways, Hugo Boss earns its shady stamp because it exploited French and Polish forced laborers, keeping them in a camp outside of the factory where food was scarce and hygiene poor. In 2011, the company apologized for employing forced labor, though not for setting the bar so high for Nazi fashion. While I'm head over heels for my Chanel cardigan, I think I have to burn it. It's rumored that the founder of this French clothing, jewelry, perfume, and accessory company was a Nazi collaborator and spy. When the Germans invaded France, Jew-hating Gabrielle Coco Chanel was living in Hotel Ritz with her Nazi intelligence officer boyfriend, Freiherr Hans Gunther von Dinklage. Apparently, she even had a codename in the German military intelligence service, the Abwehr. That codename was Westminster, and Westminster reported to the Nazi spy master General Walter Schellenberg. When the Allies pushed the Germans out of France, Coco was arrested and interrogated, though on her collaboration with the Nazis there was insufficient evidence, and she was loosed back into the world. The American photography-focused tech company Kodak had subsidiaries in Europe prior and during World War II. After America joined the war, Kodak's subsidiary in Germany continued under Nazi control, ensuring to get a piece of that forced labor while continuing to trade with other subsidiaries in some of the European neutrals. Kodak took it up a notch, producing triggers, detonators, and other military hardware for use by the Germans, and when the war was over, Kodak received the profits made by its German branch. The company was later a target in Holocaust-related lawsuits, and it contributed 500,000 USD to a fund which aimed to compensate the victims of forced labor, though it denied trading with the enemy after America's declaration of war. Think about it, the Nazis probably snapped wartime propaganda with the Kodak, and Hitler might have had his very own Kodak moment. Back when Hitler came to power in 1933, American technology company International Business Machines, IBM, owned most of its German subsidiary DHMARC. In that same year, the German government announced a national census. The census would allow the Nazis to identify Jews, Gypsies, and other undesirable ethnic groups for later extermination. The German IBM subsidiary offered to facilitate the census, and the company's American HQ fattened the subsidiary with a large sum of money, facilitating the construction of a factory in Berlin. Out of this factory, IBM supplied the Nazis with punch cards and the devices to read them, allowing the Nazis to bump up their former estimations of 400,000 to 600,000 Jews in Germany to 2 million. With this information, the Nazis could systematically find, transport, and exterminate the Jews and other Untermensch under Nazi racial policy, not only in Germany, but in German-occupied territories as well. After America got on the war bus, IBM smuggled punch cards and machines to its German branch and continued to supply the Nazis out of its other European subsidiaries, ensuring continued and lucrative business as usual. While IBM contributed to a Holocaust survivor fund in 2001, it has not apologized for profiteering from the Holocaust, sticking with the story that their German branch was held at Mausepoint. Bayerische Motorenwerke, or just BMW, built itself up making aircraft for the Germans in World War I, making motorbikes and cars after World War I, and supplying the Luftwaffe with aircraft right up until the end of World War II. Now, just like with Hugo Boss, BMW was founded in Germany, though also in a climate of war. I can't bring myself to tag BMW as shady just for this, though I can tag it as shady for its employment of up to 50,000 forced laborers, of which around half were prisoners from concentration camps. These laborers worked in dangerous conditions and were often abused, with many perishing on the job. BMW, however, was open about their history after the war, initiating public debates and making public apologies. We've mentioned a German car company in Germany, though what about American car companies in Germany and German-occupied territories? Ford Motor Company's shady dealings stemmed from a mutual admiration between the company's founder, Henry Ford, and the head of the Nazi snake, Adolf Hitler. Ford's admiration of the Führer blossomed long before the Führer was the Führer, back when Adolf was a struggling fanatic, and the relationship was born of a mutual hatred of Jews. On the other side of this dirty coin, Hitler had wood for Ford back when he was writing Mein Kampf, and Hitler even kept a life-size photograph of Henry Ford in his Munich office. During the war, Ford Motor Company was manufacturing military vehicles, mostly trucks, for the Allies and for the Axis, with plants in Berlin, Cologne, Hamburg, and France pushing out and repairing vehicles for the Nazis. American management even went so far as to give the A-OK to military production in Germany, while denying similar ventures on home soil. As you might have deduced by now, Ford's European subsidiaries made good use of that so profitable forced labor, with much of its Cologne plant workforce comprised of young women. The conditions were terrible and the pay worse, ranging from a mid to high zero. Ford's American HQ even received some of the profits of its German branch, up to 60,000 USD a year between 1940 and 1943, though representatives later claimed the company didn't know what the Germans were up to under the covers. While Ford Motor Company's gifts to lovesick Hitler were just fantastic, there would have been no invasion of Poland, France, or the frigid wastes of the Soviet Union without General Motors and its German subsidiary Opel. In 1935, Opel agreed to build a new plant in Berlin. Out of this plant, Opel outfitted the Wehrmacht with the infamous Blitz truck, to which the success of the Blitzkrieg was owed, though the trucks were not Opel's only contribution to Nazi material. The company also produced armored cars, tanks, aircraft engines for the Luftwaffe, mines and torpedo detonators, as well as synthetic fuel, which put the lightning in lightning war. While General Motors American HQ severed ties with Opel, on paper at least, after Pearl Harbor and America's entry into the war, the parent company regained control of Opel after the war and claimed $33 million in war reparations, paid in compensation of Allied bombing of its German facilities. The Aluminium Company of America, Alcoa, had a monopoly on aluminium prior to and during World War II. Following secret arrangements with the Nazis, the Alcoa piled them with aluminium, enabling the growth of the Luftwaffe while stunting that of the US Air Force. In June 1941, Secretary of the Interior Harold Iker said, "If America loses this war, it can thank the Aluminium Corporation of America." It's safe to say that Alcoa at least extended the war against Nazi Germany. The American chemical company Dow Chemical not only supplied the Nazis with products vital for the construction of medicine, flares, and explosives, but also taught them how to refine oil more efficiently. To put the Dow's contributions into perspective, 90% of what it produced during World War II was in service of the war. Dow also created napalm B for Allied use in World War II, and Allied incendiaries manufactured by Dow were used to firebomb Dresden in February 1945. This was a highly controversial operation in itself. Backed by the German behemoth IG Farben since 1929, Standard Oil of New Jersey manufactured and supplied the Luftwaffe with tetrathyl lead, an essential component in aviation fuel, and with the help of IG Farben, even sourced tetrathyl lead from the British Standard Oil subsidiary Ethel. Standard Oil New Jersey also shipped Allied fuel to the Nazis occupying France through Switzerland and conspired with them to prevent the development of synthetic rubber in America, resulting in the US military being desperately short of rubber when it leapt into war. Standard Oil of New Jersey went on to become Exxon, which merged with Mobil in 1999 and became ExxonMobil. IG Farben was a colossal German chemical and pharmaceutical conglomerate at the start of World War II, the largest corporation in all of Europe and the fourth largest in the world. IG Farben constructed a synthetic rubber plant as part of the Auschwitz concentration camp complex in Poland, employing slave labor from the camps of Auschwitz, among other sources. As well as synthetic rubber, IG Farben manufactured methanol and much of Germany's plastics, explosives, nitrogen and solvents, pharmaceuticals, and synthetic fuel. A constituent of IG Farben, Bayer, which is still going strong today, conducted medical experiments on prisoners at Auschwitz, injecting them with a range of diseases including typhoid, tuberculosis, and diphtheria, and then testing drugs on them like pigs or monkeys, often killing them in the process. One of IG Farben's subsidiaries even supplied Zyklon B, the cyanide-based pesticide gas used to exterminate the Jews in gas chambers. IG Farben began to dissolve at the end of the war, with its directors being put on trial for war crimes, though many of these directors were acquitted and those sentenced to prison got out way too early. Bayer apologized in 1995 and set up a compensation fund for former captive laborers, though IG Farben took until 2012 to finish its dissolution. This final one is a bit of a bonus round, and I might be putting my foot in it, as the general consensus on smoking around the time of the war was that it was totally good for you. But I think it's worth mentioning that cigarette/tobacco companies like Lucky Strikes and Camels definitely capitalized on the smoking culture of the time, specifically the culture in the military, with death sticks being included in military ration packs. So what are your thoughts on this one? Do you think cigarette/tobacco companies supplying soldiers in World War II deserve that shady stamp? Let us know in the comments section below. So the companies I mentioned in this video are only some of the shady companies suspected of somehow profiteering or otherwise getting up to no good in World War II. Hundreds of companies might sit somewhere on the shady spectrum, with those on the screen right now being just some of the other ones I considered for the video but didn't include. I've also not even touched shady banks, of which those in Switzerland like Chase Manhattan Bank and BIS were among the worst. Nor have I alluded to the potential connections between some of the major companies, as for instance, Charles Higham inferred in his book, Trading with the Enemy, an expose of the Nazi-American money plot 1933 to 1949. Higham suggests that companies like IG Farben, Ford Motors, General Motors, Standard Oil, Chase Manhattan Bank, BIS, ITT, and many other supposedly Nazi and fascism sympathizing profiteers are all part of some Illuminati level fraternity. I won't be diving into that quicksand in this video, however. It's naturally rather complicated and controversial, as are each of the cases I mentioned, even in isolation. Some of the cases I mentioned are based on rumor and speculation, while some companies like BMW and IG Farben either undressed or were stripped down naked after the war. Some of the cases may have been exaggerated or even played down. At the end of the day, the information included in this video is based on what is quickly available to the public, and this video exists to inspire further research, from which you might formulate theories of your own. Although I do warn you, you can dig pretty hard and still get nowhere. Many of these companies are still trading, many under the same name, and it's understandable why they would want to keep their history buried. So anyways guys, just before you go, make sure you check out all the links in the description below, including our Discord if you want to chat to other history buffs, and the Patreon if you want to support the channel more than you already are by watching this video. By donating to the Patreon, you get access to a special behind the scenes Discord where you can check out videos earlier than everybody else and interact with all of our team members. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and I hope you learned something new.